Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Play Attention webinar. My name is Gwen Sorley, and I will be your host today. I really do appreciate you taking out some time today to attend our webinar, which is our second webinar in our Executive Function series. And today we'll be discussing focus, the art of focusing in a distracted world. And so a couple things I want to mention before we get started. One is that I am recording this event. So at the end of the webinar, you'll receive an email follow-up. And that email will have a link for the webinar replay. So you'll be able to share the recorded webinar with any family members or staff members who were unable to attend the live event. Also, if at any point you have comments or questions, there is a chat box. I'm sure you're all familiar with Zoom now. So at the bottom of your screen, there's the chat box. And if you have questions or comments, please do type your questions and comments there. So today we're going to be talking about focus. And I thought before we really get into the whole presentation, perhaps we should just do an exercise in focusing. So what I want everyone to do right now is to take a deep breath, just a nice deep inhale and a nice deep exhale. And for the next 30 seconds, your job is to simply focus on your breathing, okay? Nothing else. Just for the next 30 seconds, I want you to focus on your breathing. You ready? Let's go. And time. All right, now I have a question for you. And I want everyone to be very honest. You should see, let's see. You should see a poll on your screen right now. And I want you to be honest. Which of these phrases describe the last 30 seconds for you? One, I think you can choose multiple ones here. I think I set up the poll that way. So if there were multiple things you did during this time, you can put in your response. So one, you only focused on your breathing. Two, you checked your email. Three, you looked at your phone. Four, you got distracted by the numbers on the screen. Or five, you had a variety of thoughts come in and out of your mind. Everyone go ahead and respond. And I am going to close the polling in 3, 2, 1, end the poll. Okay, our number one answer was, I had a variety of thoughts come in and out of my mind. And that is so typical, isn't it? We're constantly distracted by our thoughts. We're either thinking about what has happened in the past or what may happen in the future. I just read a quote this morning that said, my life has been full of a series of unfortunate events, most of which have never actually happened, because our mind, constantly being distracted, usually thinks about future events that may occur. And for some reason, our mind, it typically goes towards the negative sometimes. So we have to be careful about controlling our thoughts, not thinking so much about the past and the future, but really trying to keep it in the present. And as we shared here, 56% of you said that you had a variety of thoughts coming in and out of your mind during that time. 41% of you said you only focused on your breathing. So that's excellent. That's actually higher than I thought it was going to be. 10% checked your email. 3% looked at your phone, which I thought was going to be much higher. And 31% said they got distracted by the numbers on the screen. So we see in just a 30-second block of time how easily it is, how easy it is for us to be distracted. Let's look at some of our stats on what we know about our typical day. So, on average, people spend a total of 352 minutes, about 5 hours and 52 minutes each day checking email, just checking email alone. And that includes, I should mention, that includes both work email and your personal email. On average, we pick up our phones 58 times a day. People spend an average of 3 hours and 15 minutes on their phones every day. And for millennials, that's a bit higher. 39% of Americans within the last week have lost a day-to-day item, or they've forgotten a basic piece of information. And we all have done this, right? We go to a website, we think we're really interested in the content. The average amount of time a person stays on a page, on a web page, is 10 to 20 seconds. That's our average length of time we spend on a web page. So what do we know about our attention and about our minds? We know that we are distracted. Now, it hasn't always been like this. Back in the Lincoln-Douglas debates, you hear a lot about the Lincoln-Douglas debates. These were back in the 1850s. And people would come to these debates and they would spend hours listening and paying attention to the debates. Douglas, at one debate, got up and he spoke for 3 hours. 3 hours straight. Can you imagine being able to stand up and give a speech and talk for 3 hours with no teleprompter, with no PowerPoint in front of you to guide you? And at the end of the 3 hours, it was time for Lincoln to give his rebuttal. So he looked at all of the people there, all of the audience members who attended that day, and it was 5 o'clock. He said, well, why don't we all break? We'll take an hour for dinner, and then we'll come back after dinner, and I will give my rebuttal. And you know, that audience agreed. Can you imagine today agreeing to spending 3 hours, taking a break, and then coming back to hear another 3+ hours? But they did. They went home, they had their dinner, they came back to listen to another 3 hours. So now they've been in this debate for 6+ hours. They've been paying attention to the information that these two men were given. They didn't have any visuals. They didn't have any pictures, no graphics, no video clips, no commercial breaks. They were able to sit and attend. And that was their social event. Now we are all guilty of this. This is typically our social event, right? Where we may be very interested in the person we're with and perhaps what they have to say, but we are so distracted. We're distracted by our devices. We're distracted by those thoughts in our head. It's very difficult for us to give someone our undivided attention. And you know, it may seem at times that you are on information overload, that there's always information coming at you through your email, through your text messages, your phone, your social media. And it's true. When you think about those people at the Lincoln-Douglas debates, and you think about the information we get now, today, we get more information in one issue of the New York Times Sunday edition than a person in the 1850s got in their entire lifespan. So we are on information overload. We are inundated by information, by media. So it is very difficult for many of us, even if we have a really great attention span and great control over our minds, it's very difficult not to be distracted. So let's think about what attention is. Can you give me a definition of attention without using a simile, without saying, well, it's focus, it's concentration? How would you give a definition of attention. I went to Webster's and I thought they had a really good definition. They said, attention is the act or the power of fixing the mind on something, careful listening or watching. And I like that use of the word power. It's having the power over your own mind, harnessing that power to really carefully listen or watch. And you can think of that as being actively engaged. Being attentive is your ability to be actively engaged. It's when you are able to carefully listen or watch while filtering out all of that unnecessary stimuli around us. And if we have good attention, we know that there are very positive results, right? I don't need to tell you the results that we get from good attention, but attention, of course, helps us learn. And when it helps us learn, because you have to be actively engaged in order to learn, right? Attention's role is critical in the learning process. You can have the best teacher on the planet standing in front of you, but if you have a really hard time paying attention to the teaching method, then it's going to be very difficult for you to learn the material. A couple of you are asking about the slides, and I will have the slides following the webinar, but I don't have them available for you right now. But if you are asking about them afterwards, I will have those available to you. So good attention helps us learn, right? It's critical in the learning process. It helps us be successful in the workplace, maintains our memories. We have to be able to pay attention to information in order to store that in our short-term memory and then into our long-term memories. Attention, of course, allows us to develop positive relationships. So as you saw in that video I showed a little bit earlier, if you're not paying attention to your spouse, to your partner, to the person beside you, to your friend, it's very difficult for you to have positive relationships. And we know that is a key to a healthy lifestyle. Also, attention, of course, keeps you safe and healthy. If we have poor attention, we have low academic or work performance, difficulty with our peer relationships, an inability to complete tasks, and also an inability to remember. And if you have all of this going on in your life, it really does lead to an increase in stress, anxiety, and depression. So why does there seem to be such a difference between individuals where you might look at someone and you think, focusing just comes so easy to that person? It just seems like it comes so naturally. I was talking to an individual earlier this week and he said, it seems like I'm always working so hard that everything else comes so easily to others. While those individuals may be able to control their attention, and others, their ability to pay attention often seems to depend on the situation or the number of distractions in the environment. Because, you know, we talk about attention deficit a lot, right? But no one really has a deficit of attention, a complete deficit of attention. ADHD is really a misnomer. If the situation is right, if it's a highly stimulating type of activity, or if it's an activity of high interest and there are very few distractions, even if you have ADHD or an attention problem, you might in those situations be able to hyper focus. So for some people, it seems that attention comes naturally, and to others, it may seem that it's situational and whether or not there are lots of distractions in the environment. And many of you may be thinking about why this is. We have to think about attention as a function of executive function. Executive function and self-regulation skills are the mental processes that actually enable you to control your attention, your behaviors, your emotions. And we know that 90% of children and adults with attention difficulties or ADHD have weak executive function. So if you have weak executive function, it's going to be very difficult for you to direct and sustain your attention at will while filtering out all of those unnecessary stimuli around you. So the question is, do you really have an attention difficulty or a deficit in attention? Or is everyone experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing? Perhaps sometimes you look at your child and you think, I don't know that he has ADHD or an attention problem. Maybe he's just being an 8-year-old boy. If you have questions about that, we do have a focus assessment available to you. Focus is a norm reference test of attentional control. It's computer-based. It takes about 20 minutes in length, so you can do it in the comfort of your home or your office. And at the end of the 20 minutes, we receive a full report here that tells us how you performed compared to the performance of your peers. And it breaks it down in a few different areas. So we look at performance. Were you able to start and complete that 20-minute assignment while being actively engaged? We look at consistency, which also includes your ability to sustain your attention and also your processing speed. We look at distractions. How do you deal with auditory and visual distractions? And impulse control. How impulsive were you during that activity, that 20-minute block of time? So we're going to have that available to you. Now, typically the focus assessment is $49, but for everyone here, I'm giving that to you for half price. Since you're here as an attendee, if you want the focus assessment, if you're interested in learning more and registering either yourself or a client or your child, just type focus in the chat box and we'll be certain to get back to you. Because I know a lot of you in your pre-information that you filled out before this webinar, a lot of you had questions about, well, do I really have an attention difficulty or am I just like everyone else? Don't we all have a deficit in attention at this time because we're overloaded? So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about your attention, just type in focus. And like I said, one of us will get back in touch with you, give you more information on that focus assessment. And if you're interested in doing that, you can do it in the comfort of your own home. Please don't just raise your hand. I know there's a raise your hand icon, but I won't see those after the webinar. So make certain you're typing the word focus into that chat box. And then once we receive your focus assessment results, we'll set up a time to review those results and talk to you about those results and even talk to you about how we can customize a neurocognitive training plan to help you improve those areas. Because really, we all know at times we have a hard time with our attention spans. We know that it does affect us. So the question is, what can we do? What can we do today that will help us control our monkey mind? Now, if you ever do yoga or if you do any mindfulness training, you probably are very familiar with that term monkey mind. It's a common theme that they talk about. And monkey mind is a term that refers to an unsettled or restless or confused mind where you have those thoughts coming in and out, kind of like our focus test that we did earlier in this session, right? 57% said they were distracted by their own thoughts. That's a good example of a monkey mind. So what can we do in order to control, in order to change our lifestyle so that we can put things into place that will help us with our focus? And there are several things that you can do. And I'm going to review some of those things, but before I start, what I want you to keep in mind is that I have about 9 different strategies you can use. And these are things that you can start incorporating today. But don't overwhelm yourself. Don't think that you're going to incorporate all of these things today, right? Set a mini goal. Maybe choose one or two of these things that you can incorporate into your life, or maybe refine. Maybe you're already doing some of these things, but you could make some refinements and make them even better. But all of these steps and strategies that I'm going to talk about are things that you can do which have been proven to help with focus. First is breathing. We talked about that initially, right? We were doing our breathing exercise where some of us did pretty well. 41% of you said you were able to just focus on your breathing for that 30-second block of time. Let's see if we can expand that time. Really incorporate some breathing exercises into your life, because there is a direct correlation between controlling your breath and controlling your mind. The more control you have over your breathing, the more control you have over your mind. So when you find yourself getting a little bit frazzled, a little distracted, maybe a little anxious, that is a great time to step back and try a breathing exercise. Because when you can get control of your breathing and take a few moments, it doesn't take long, take a few moments to control your breathing, you will notice that you are, in fact, more attentive. You're able to focus. I'm going to share this breathing and drawing video that instruction that I did. This is a great exercise if you have difficulty just focusing on your breathing. This will kind of give you a visual representation and help you move into maybe more, not difficult, but different breathing exercises where you don't have this visual assistance. So what I'm doing here is I have a piece of paper and my pen. As I'm inhaling, I do an upward motion with my pen, and then I hold the breath when I go around, and as I come down, I'm exhaling. So you are breathing as you inhale, you are going up with your line, and then when you get to the top, and you are holding your breath, and then as you come down, you exhale. And so that goes naturally. Your breath isn't based on your drawing. Your drawing is based on your breath. So it may look very different. This is what my drawing looked one day when I did it at the end. I did this for 1 minute and 50 seconds. And this is what my breath looked like. This is a visual representation of my breathing. So I was on the inhale, and then I paused, I held my breath, and then I breathed out. So you can see there's a little variation in all of my breaths. And then I made a few notes. The time I did it for 1 minute and 50 seconds. And I can tell you, it didn't seem that long. It seemed like about 30 seconds. And I was able to keep my mind in the present moment most of that time. And I think that this is actually a great exercise to do with your child or your students. So as this student is breathing, he's doing the same thing I was doing. So if you're trying to teach a younger individual some breathing techniques, this is a great way to do it. And I think that if you incorporate this before they start their school day, at intervals throughout the day, when you start seeing your child is getting a little distracted, and many of us are still at home doing e-learning. And so many parents have said to me, he's so distracted, and there are times where I just can't get him back on track. Start using these breathing exercises as a way to refocus, get him back into the learning process. And you can set a timer. Maybe in the beginning, set it for 1 minute and just do it for 1 minute. This student did this breathing exercise for 1 minute. And at the end, you'll see he's surprised it was only 1 minute long. You see it in his face that he can't believe it was over that quickly. So this is a great tool to help start getting control over your breath. And remember, the more control you have over your breath, the more control you have over your mind. And then once you have a good practice going, look into other breathing techniques. I use one by Dr. Andrew Weil, and probably many of you are familiar with him, where he takes an inhale for 4 seconds, holds it for 7, and then exhales for 8. So there are lots of different strategies you can use, but I assure you, if you start incorporating these throughout your day, especially at times where you're anxious or distracted, you'll really see a difference. Catherine says, can you provide the title and or hyperlink for the mindful breathing article? Yes, it will be in the ebook that follows. Okay, Catherine, you'll receive that. So that's one, getting control over your breathing. The next thing I want you to consider is ending the morning madness, right? Because morning is such an important time of day. It really sets the stage for the rest of your day. A positive morning routine leads to a more focused, productive, and successful day. But we have to plan, right? We have to plan in order to get this in place. So when we start our morning slowly, not rushed around, we take the time to start our morning slowly. Take the time to slow down so that you can reduce your daily stress. It also allows you time to meditate, review the things that you have to do during the day, and you can think about all of these things uninterrupted. Give yourself some quiet time to get into a positive state of mind, because again, like I said earlier, what happens in the morning sets the stage for the rest of your day. Also, it allows your mind and body time to truly wake up before interacting with others and gives you time to enjoy a healthy, not rushed breakfast. Now, in order to do this, like I said, you do need to kind of plan ahead. And what I recommend is try to get up before the rest of the household. Even if it's just 15 minutes, try to get up 15 minutes ahead of time. If you can, 30 minutes. Give yourself some time to start your morning slowly and get your ritual in place. These are some suggestions that I make when you're thinking about your morning ritual. First of all, build in that extra time so that you can wake up. So if you want to give yourself 30 minutes before everyone else wakes up, set your alarm or plan to get up maybe 35 minutes before, just to give yourself a 5-minute buffer. And then start developing your morning tradition. And for everyone, it's going to be different. You know, I've kind of worked on my morning tradition, and now I have a very set schedule in the morning where I get up and I take the dogs out, and then I have time for yoga. I have time for my workout, breakfast, and then the rest of the household wakes up. But I have that time set aside where I have my time with my dogs, yoga, I do a workout, have my breakfast. I actually oftentimes get to fit maybe a few minutes in there for breathing. And so that really helps set the tone for my day. So try a few different things. If it's just 10 minutes of yoga, fantastic. If it's just 5 minutes of breathing, great. But try to mix it up and really make it work for you. Also, make certain once you have your tradition in place, protect it. Don't let others derail you, right? Don't let people derail you. Don't let things derail you. Know what your morning routine is and go right to it and protect that time. This means you're going to have to prepare the night before because you do have some things that you should get into place. Maybe decide what you're going to have for breakfast. Have some of that at hand. Organize your papers, write down your to-do list the day before. Just kind of organize yourself the night before so that those things aren't on your mind in the morning. You've already organized yourself. Now you can just start on your morning ritual. And remove unnecessary distractions. When we talk about your morning ritual, try to make it a point not to check your phone, Do not check your email during your morning ritual. Save that till later. It can wait 30 minutes. If you got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, nothing catastrophic is going to happen. Give yourself your morning ritual and then check everything else. If you check your email, you check your text messages, then you feel obligated to start replying, and that just gets you all off task. So really try to remove devices until you're done with your morning ritual. And I promise you, you will see changes in your day. If you're not rushing around and stressed the first part of your day, it will really make a difference into the rest of your day and for everyone's day. Because if you're rushed and stressed in the beginning of the day, then your partner feels that, your children feel that. So make certain you take that time. Also, we know that exercise is critical, don't we? And it's not just saying that exercise is important to your focus, but there have been many studies that show us that exercise is an important part of our day. They did a study of children from the ages of 11 to 16, all with ADHD, and they did a daily regimen where they just were on a bike for 20 minutes. Okay, so they cycled for 20 minutes every day. And the study found that those students who all had ADHD, all had attention difficulties, their attention and their focus, their ability to complete tasks was improved for up to 60 minutes after that exercise. So it really does have that carryover effect. So make certain that you're incorporating exercise and movement into your day. You have an opportunity now, especially if you're at home together, to start incorporating that as part of your workday routine, as part of your school day routine. Make certain you're getting that. And you'll notice that not only was their attention and task completion improved, but also their impulse control and their self-regulation had improved. So really important to start building that into your day. So how much exercise should you really be getting? The CDC recommends that children and adolescents 6 to 17 get at least 1 hour or more a day. Okay, that's moderate to vigorous daily activity. And the CDC recommends 150 minutes of exercise a week for adults. Now, before you think that just seems like a lot of exercise, it's really not. When you break it down, that's just 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. You can do that. 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Now, if you really aren't exercising and that's not part of your day, don't start with 30, start with 10 minutes a day, start with 15 minutes a day. Just start getting into that routine and then start building that up. Same with your children. If they're not getting that hour a day, and remember, it doesn't have to be 1 hour at a time. It could be broken up into 15-minute increments throughout the day, but just make certain that that is part of your daily routine, and it does clear the mind. It does help the mind focus. So far, we have starting with some breathing exercises, getting control over your breath. We talked about cleaning up your morning routine, getting a good morning ritual, exercise, and then also what you eat. Make certain that you are planning to eat for brain health. And I know that many of you have heard about superfoods. And superfoods really do have maximum nutrition, but they have been shown to improve focus and also memory. So it is important to really keep in mind the different foods that will help your focus throughout the day. You want a good blend of proteins, or I should say a good balance of protein, carbohydrates, and vitamins. So remember, your proteins are your lean meats, eggs. Beans are also considered a protein. Nuts are considered a protein. Your carbohydrates you can get from your fruits and vegetables. Carbohydrates, if you're doing a pasta, should always be whole grain. So look at your whole grain alternatives. And then your vitamins. Remember, vitamin D you can get from the sun. So make certain that you're getting some sunshine and getting that vitamin D. So you do want to have that good balance, because what you eat will affect your attention and your ability to sustain your focus throughout the day. So just some tips on your diet. Make certain that you always have those balanced meals that include vegetables, protein, fruits. Also read the labels. Make certain that there's not a lot of different ingredients that include sugars and artificial additives. And you don't want to have a lot of processed foods in your diet. And then make certain you try to keep to a schedule, because one of the difficult things that we have when we're struggling with our attention, sometimes we miss meal times, right? It just eludes us. We lose track of time, and then we lose track of our meal times. Really important to schedule those meal times and make certain that you are having your meals, at least 3 meals a day, or if you're doing mini meals, it may be more than that, but make certain you have a scheduled time for meals. That makes certain that you get those meals and you don't have some crashes during the day, and that you don't overeat. Because if you miss a meal, what you'll tend to do is eat a lot more later on because you're so hungry, and you'll probably make some bad food choices. So really try to incorporate that. Now, again, I know I'm going over through a lot of information, but don't overwhelm yourself. So far, you've seen, I think, 4 different things that you can think about and improving your attention and your focus. But think about 1 or 2 things that you can do, that you can incorporate today. Also, you want to try to get a good night's sleep. We know that a lack of sleep actually has a negative effect on executive function. There have been studies that show a lack of sleep actually has a negative effect on selective attention. And that's what we were talking about earlier, in that our ability to direct and sustain our attention while filtering distractions. That's our selective attention. And if you have a lack of sleep, it really does negatively affect our ability to pay attention, our ability to focus. So it's really critical that you start incorporating a good night's sleep into your schedule as well. So here are the recommended times for sleep. This is broken down by age. So of course, your 1 to 2-year-olds, you want 11 to 14 hours. But as you get older, less and less sleep. About 13 to 18 years old, I know a lot of you have children in that age range. You want to make certain that they're getting 8 to 10 solid hours. If they're getting those hours of sleep, then it really does improve their attention. Now, if you have a child in those teen years and you think, well, then they should be going to bed at, about 8 o'clock. Keep in mind, there is a difference in biology with teenagers. And teenagers, their clock, literally their biological clock, lets them sleep best around 10 o'clock at night. So if you wonder why your child is not going to sleep early and tends to sleep in late, that really is the biology of a teenager. So you may look at those statistics on the teenage sleeping, and usually it's going to occur a little bit later, but allow them to sleep in a little bit later in the morning. So if you have a little bit of flexibility, that's something you want to keep in mind as well when you're setting up your structure. And don't forget about yourself. Adults need at least 7 to 9 hours on average to really have strong executive function. Now, I know that all of you are going to tell me you are a fantastic multitasker. And I'm here to tell you that no one is a good multitasker, right? You might think you're a really good multitasker because it feels like you're so busy and you're doing lots of things. So you think you're really great at multitasking. But no one is a good multitasker. As you saw here with our distracted driver, I'm afraid that most all of us are probably guilty of texting and driving at one time or another. That's multitasking, right? And it's been shown that texting and driving is actually more dangerous than drunk driving. So it really shows us that multitasking is something we are not good at. Our brain is designed so that you can do one task really well at a time. Try to start doing one task at a time, work to completion, and then move on to another task. I've learned this myself over the last few years, right? I used to always have my to-do list. I thought I was so good because I had my list down that they say you need to have. I'd have my to-do list, but the problem was I was jumping around and I was doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that and these two things simultaneously. And I felt like I was getting through that task list, but then at the end of the day, I still had items on that list that I hadn't completed. Now I've really trained myself to do one task, complete it, mark it off, go to the next one, complete it, mark it off, go to the next one. Even though I'm tempted still at times to move down to another one, I don't let myself. And most of the time, I can get all of those things marked off by the end of the day. So really is best if you allow yourself to focus on one task, complete it, and then move on. But what often happens is that if we have a long task and we have an attention difficulty and we're easily distracted, it becomes very difficult to complete tasks because when we get those longer tasks, we have a hard time with task completion. So when you have a longer task in front of you, a report, a work assignment, make certain that you break that long task into short assignments. And one of the things we talked about in our last webinar on procrastination was to use the Pomodoro technique. Now, this Pomodoro technique was originally shown to us by Francesco Cirillo. And he did this with his university students, where he broke tasks up, long tasks up into 15-minute increments. And he called it the Pomodoro technique because he had one of those tomato kitchen timers. Set it for 15 minutes. The university students would work for 15 minutes and then take a little mini break. Work for another 15 minutes and take a mini break. Reset 15 minutes, take a mini break. After four Pomodoro alarms, then you take a longer break and you start again. So this is just one technique, but keep in mind that you are going to be more focused on a task, especially if that task is very long, if you break it up into increments. Give yourself a small achievable goal within a 15-minute block of time, take a mental break. Go back to your next one, take a mental break. Maybe after 4 Pomodoros, you do a little breathing exercise or you do a little bit of exercise. So then you're incorporating some of those other techniques into your day, helping you with your focus. And of course, make certain at times when you can, remove your devices. Turn your alarms off, turn your cell phone off, turn off your social media. Because many of you have said that this is a typical school day for your child. Right now, as we mentioned, many of your children are doing e-school and they are very distracted. It's so easily to be distracted, not only for our children, but for ourselves. When you have those devices around you, it's very simple to get distracted. And keep in mind, like we mentioned, if you have an attention difficulty or ADHD, you probably have weak executive function. Part of executive function is impulse control. If you have a hard time dealing with your impulsiveness, if you have a hard time controlling your impulsivity, that means that you are constantly seeking out instant gratification, right? And your phone, your text messages, your emails, your social media is designed to give you that instant gratification. So you are seeking that out. And that is very detrimental to your ability to focus. So when there are blocks of time where you have to really be actively engaged and filter out distractions, make certain that those devices are turned off, especially your social media. And finally, let's talk about attention. Play attention. is a way that you can actually learn how to develop the art of paying attention. That's what we do within Play Attention. We take attention, which is very abstract, and we make it concrete and controllable. So you actually see your attention in real time. You feel what you're doing, and you're allowed to practice it. We do this in a very unique way, in that we have this body wave armband. And on that armband, there are 3 sensors. And those sensors monitor your brain activity that tells us how attentive you are. And then that information is given over to the computer, where you're allowed to control all of the cognitive exercises just with your mind, or more specifically, your attention alone. And you receive constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not you truly are focused and paying attention. Because many of us have heard all our lives, please pay attention. I need you to pay attention. Or a lot of times you might be redirecting your child. Please pay attention. Pay attention. I need you to pay attention. And they think, but I am paying attention. But they really don't know what that means. Within Play Attention, we actually are able to show you your attentive state in real time. You're able to practice the skill of paying attention. And we incorporate specific cognitive skills that lay the foundation for strong executive function. So when you're working on Play Attention, we integrate that feedback technology where we monitor your brain activity that tells us how attentive you are. And then you activate all of the cognitive exercises just with your mind, or more specifically, your attentive state alone. So you're going to go through a series of cognitive exercises that are all brain enabled. You're going to work on areas such as task completion, your ability to start and complete in a timely manner. You're going to work on working memory, auditory processing, motor skills, social skills, discriminatory processing, or your ability to filter out distractions. And in order for you to work in any of those cognitive skill areas, you have to be paying attention. If you're not paying attention, the activity will stop, the character will go in the wrong direction, and you have to focus back in order to activate the game again, or the activity. And that's really critical, because we know one of the first catalysts necessary for brain change is attention. If you're going to learn, and we talked about this earlier, if you're going to learn, that attention is critical in the learning process. You have to be paying attention to the teaching method in order for brain change to occur. So within our Play Attention program, we actually make certain that you are paying attention. And then we incorporate all of those core cognitive skills that lay the foundation for strong executive function. We also have a full behavior shaping program that we incorporate into it in order to make certain that you are able to control behaviors not conducive to good attention. The fidgeting, the nail biting, we work on all of those behaviors as well. If you want more information on Play Attention, you might want to consider doing a one-on-one consultation with us. During our consultations, we get to know a little bit more about you, what you really enjoy doing, your strengths, and those areas you want to improve. That might be for you yourself. You might do a consultation for your child to discuss your child's different strengths and weaknesses, or maybe your clients or students. We'll talk to you about those different areas, and then talk to you about how we customize the Play Attention plan in order to improve those areas, in order to improve those cognitive skills that lay the foundation for strong executive function. And that will really give you a good overview of the program. And you can decide best if it's the right learning tool for you, your family, or your practice. So if you would like to schedule a one-on-one consultation, go ahead and type in consultation in the chat box. And again, we'll make certain that we follow up with you to schedule a consultation. Those usually take about 40-45 minutes because we really want to take the time to learn a little bit more about you. And if you typed in focus earlier, and you wanted to do the focus assessment, that's a good time for us to take the focus assessment and kind of incorporate it into the consultation so that we can look at the different areas, not just look at, the areas of attention that are lacking, but make a plan, right? So yes, we know that we're weak in these different areas of attention, and this is how we can address those areas, because that's key, right? Not just talking a little bit more about how distracted we are, but what are we going to do about it? And that's what we'll do during this consultation. So if you put in focus earlier and you're planning on doing one of those focus assessments, I would encourage you to do the consultation with the focus assessment so that we can review those results and really look at a full customized plan so that you have a concrete plan to improve attention and all of these cognitive skills that we want to improve in order to be successful. I really do think that you will get a good understanding of the program that way. And many of you have typed in focus. If you do want to type in focus or a consultation, you can continue doing that. And I'm going to address, some of you have typed in some questions, so I'm going to address that here shortly. So again, with our NASA-inspired technology, we're going to incorporate that feedback-based technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping to provide you with the most comprehensive program available to improve executive function and self-regulation. So let's reflect a little bit about attention. We know that attention means to be actively engaged. We know that our goal is to be able to direct and sustain our attention at will while filtering out distractions. That's our goal with attention, being able to do that at will. There are some lifestyle changes, there are some exercises we can do in order to improve our ability to pay attention. So we had those mindful breathing exercises. Remember the breathing and drawing exercise. Look up other breathing exercises that you can do. We looked at controlling our morning, set up a morning ritual. Even if it's just 15 minutes, try a 15-minute ritual for just yourself to set the stage for the rest of the day. Remember to incorporate exercise into your day. Look at your food choices. Make certain that you are getting a good night's sleep. Don't multitask. You're not a good multitasker. And also remove some of those distractions, remove those devices. And if you have a really long assignment, break it up into mini goals, break it up into chunks. And finally, of course, if you want to really have a program in place to systematically practice and develop the skills necessary for strong executive function, I encourage you to do a consultation with us so we can talk to you about the Play Attention program. We're also going to have a webinar on the 17th of this month, which only goes through the Play Attention program. So if you want to get to know a little bit more about Play Attention and you don't have time for the consult, the webinar is a good spot to start as well. Now, this was part 2 in our executive function series. I do hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to address some of these questions here, so make certain you keep your questions coming. Some of you want a callback, so make certain if you want a callback to discuss some different areas, let me know. Just type in your phone number and a good time to call if you do have questions you want to chat about later. But I do hope that you continue coming to our series. The first webinar series was on procrastination. Today's was on focus. Next week, next Thursday, is going to be on organization. So a huge part of executive function. So if you haven't registered for that webinar, make certain you go to our Play Attention site, playattention.com, and then go to webinars. The special webinars tab has all of the upcoming webinars in our executive function series. The regular webinar is listed there that will just review Play Attention. And then if you look at the very bottom of that tab, you'll see it says webinar, executive function webinar series recordings. And on that particular area, you'll see that we have the procrastination webinar posted. with the webinar recording, a podcast version of it, and also the ebook to go along with it. So after each webinar, we're going to post all of the information there. So you're going to be able to access the recorded webinar, the podcast, and the ebook. So if you want to review or share any of that information. If you have to jump right now, thank you so much for coming today. I'm going to answer a few more questions, but I truly do appreciate your time and your attention. Okay, let me just go ahead and answer some of these questions. A lot of it is just for the focus and the consult. Nancy, my son is in class 1:30 to 2. I hate that he missed this 30 minutes of the presentation. Yes, everyone's going to get the recording, so no problem. Madeline, I hope you heard about the previous webinar on procrastination. You can go to our website. I'll include the link on the email follow-up as well, but just go to our playattention.com, click on webinars, webinar recordings, and you'll see everything there. Okay. Okay, I thought there was some other questions, but most of these are just, yes, Rochelle, everything can be done over the phone and online if you're referring to the focus assessment and the consult, definitely. Even the Play Attention program, we have a home system available where you will be assigned a personal executive function coach, one of our coaches here on staff to assist you, and they will assist you at a distance. Joan, you asked a good question. Can you please comment on the fidgets for young children who have attention deficit? And, you know, Joan, that's a really good question because a lot of times, and, you know, I was a classroom teacher. I started teaching back in 1996. So about, you know, many years ago, I was teaching. And when I was teaching, a lot of occupational therapists, and still today, they'll say, you know, make certain you let him fidget, give him a squeezy ball, or what we saw coming through a lot of times were those fidget spinners. And they would say that will really help them pay attention. And I'm not really convinced that's true for most people. Maybe some people are able to fidget, do one of those behaviors and stay focused. But for most of us, that's a distracting behavior. That's a self-distracting behavior. And, you know, what I like about Play Attention is we can really see how certain behaviors affect you. There's one activity called attention stamina. You can choose from different characters, but one is a whale. Once you're focused and paying attention, you're able to push that whale down to the bottom of the ocean just with your attention alone. If you get distracted, and distraction can often be that fidgeting or fidget spinner, immediately, many times, that whale will immediately start to float up because it's like we talked about earlier. The mind is designed to do one thing well at a time. So once you start a self-distracting behavior like fidgeting, oftentimes you lose your attention, that whale starts to float up, and then you have to control that behavior in order to push it back down to the bottom. So that really helps us assess the different behaviors that affect us. And we can use that information to better control those behaviors not conducive to good attention. So Joan, some individuals may be able to do that, but over the many years of experience I've had, it's just a self-distracting behavior. And if they are aware of that behavior and how it affects them, and within Play Attention, they're able to make that one-to-one correlation on how certain behaviors affect their attention. And then you can use that to help them learn how to control those behaviors at will. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Okay, excellent. Rochelle, that's fine. We can work around your time zone. We work with our clients internationally, worldwide. So Hawaii is not a problem at all. Ellen, great question. How difficult is it to make changes in a 60-year-old brain? And it is not that difficult. We know through neuroplasticity that the brain is moldable, it's shapeable. And if we provide you with the right learning tool and the right challenge, you can develop these skills despite your current wiring. We know through neuroplasticity that age is not a factor. It used to be thought, Ellen, that after about the age of 9, your brain didn't change that much. It was hardwired. That was actually the term they used. It was hardwired. We know that that is not true. Age is not a factor. Your brain continues to grow and learn and spark new neural connections, grow new neural pathways, but in response to a challenge. So brain change, right? Sparking brain change and creating those new neural pathways doesn't just happen. You have to have certain catalysts in place in order for brain change to occur. So if you're sitting on your couch at 60 years old watching TV for 8 hours a day, you're not going to spark a lot of brain change. But if you are actively involved, even exercise in aging individuals has been shown to spark new neural pathways. So 60 years old, not a problem. I'm reading a book right now called How the Brain Changes Itself, or The Brain That Changes Itself. Amazing stories about individuals in all different types of circumstances and all different ages, and how their brain was able to compensate, how their brain created new neural pathways, even after 75 years old and having a stroke, how the brain can actually create those new neural pathways. So 60-year-old is not an issue. Eileen, I think music is excellent. Music really has shown to spark those new neural connections. Music is a great way to work on focus, right? Focus and attention, and all of the areas of executive function can be improved through music. If you're involved in learning a musical instrument or singing a song, you're incorporating your attention, your memory, your impulse control. All of that is important. Now, if you're talking about using music in the background to help yourself focus, that's a little bit different for everyone. But music can be very helpful in a variety of ways. Madeline, okay. Madeline is 80 years old and going to go through the assessment process. Excellent, good for you. And as I mentioned earlier, it's never too late. I was just talking to one of our centers down in Miami, and they work with primarily the aging population. And they just told me about an 80-year-old man. He was struggling with attention and struggling with memory. His memory was so bad that he was getting lost on the way to the center. He was getting lost on the way home. They kept him in the play attention program for a full 40 hours. That's our recommended time for long-term, for permanency. And they kept him in the program. And at the end of the training process, they gave him a standardized test of attention. And not of attention, but of memory. And at 80 years old, he tested out above average in the area of memory. So I am really excited to hear that you are continuing to look into different areas, and you are willing to look into ways to improve your attention and your memory, because it's never too late. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Like I said, we'll be following up. There are a lot of people that want follow-up. So if we're not back with you, make certain that you give us some time, because there are a lot of people who wanted a follow-up. But feel free at any time to call us at the 800 number or send us an email. It's been such a pleasure speaking with all of you. Pamela says, will any of the series cover time management? Yes, indeed. Good question. It will cover time management, but remember, time management is also reviewed in our procrastination webinar that we did last week, and then also the organization webinar that's upcoming, because time management kind of really does go into all of those areas. Caroline says, I've been learning to knit, crochet, and hula hoop. Good for you. All great ways to spark brain change. Excellent. And improve attention. Very good. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you next week and speaking with all of you very soon. Take care.